You must have looked out at what other law graduate schools were doing, and this marks a very important place in the development of this field, is to the extent that dispute resolution has been brought in to the academic world as a course of study. What was going on at that time?
Not a lot. Obviously, the folks at Harvard, Roger Fisher and Bill Lowry, had written Getting to Yes about that time, and it had received some acclaim. The Pound Conference had happened just within a few years of that. Our colleague Lynn Riskin had just gone from the University of Houston to the University of Missouri in the dispute resolution area. But frankly, you could get all of them in a fairly small room. And so we had these moments starting across the country at Willamette and Missouri and Harvard, where we were beginning to say, how do we broaden legal education? How do we broaden the legal curriculum? How do we begin to think about a different set of skills that lawyers might have? I remember about that time, 82 or 83, was the year that Derek Bach, who was former dean of Harvard's law school and then president of Harvard, addressed the Board of Overseers. And when he was in that mode, he said something that was very prophetic. He said, if lawyers are not part of the dispute resolution movement, they will miss the most exciting social experiment of our time. And it's easy now to look back, as you know, and say, well, boy, that was prophetic, and look at all that happened. But at the moment, that was an interesting statement to be made by someone in his position.
But I'm curious, welcomed with open arms by the academic, by the law school professors at Willamette or in other places, and to the introduction of this course of study?
Well, I think it was the beginning of another wave of change in legal education. If you think about legal education, we really adopted a model 100 and some years ago in this country that really didn't change very much until we got to a moment where we begin to think about clinical education as a part of the substantive education. And then there was a wave where we really brought trial advocacy and all of those courses into a law school curriculum. So it's not clinics in the sense of doing work. It's saying, here, let's give you a set of skills that up until that time we'd relied on people to get in their law firms or in the real world. And so this was kind of a third wave that said, now that we're doing clinical things, now that we're teaching skills, here's a new set that reflect perhaps more accurately what lawyers actually do. The disconnect and the challenge there is that so many law faculty are so disconnected from what lawyers actually do that, as you implied, there were moments there where people would say, you know, it's not our obligation to teach those skills. Why would we be taking up valuable time from these substantive courses to prepare people to practice? Why would we want to think about settlement when their entire legal education has been focused on reading appellate court cases? And so there was, I think, a fair amount of tension as you heard voices saying, here are some directions that our curriculum ought to go. And yet, I remember a study in, I believe, about 1979 that suggested only 4 law schools in America taught negotiation.
1979, I believe it was 4 law schools in America.
I think it was an ABA study. And yet you look now, and I think virtually every law school in the country will teach at least a smattering of these courses. And so that's a tremendous change over a generation, over 20 years, in what we're doing in the legal education world.